Hello and welcome once again to today's section. So today we want to look at the digestive system. So now when we talk about the digestive system, we are talking about the process that food goes through from the mouth to the last part, that is through the anus, that you're able to excrete the waste or undigested food from the body. So when you take a typical diagram for the digestive system, you have something like this, goes down, you have the stomach, this also goes here like this, something like this, rises up, goes like this, goes like this. Then we have something like this. We depict the digestive system, that the processes that food goes through before it goes through the final part. Okay. So later I'll write this one up so that we're able to see. So from the mouth, we have the mouth where mostly digestion of carbohydrates starts from. So with the mouth, which contains the teeth, the saliva produces what we call the salivary amylase, which helps to break down carbohydrates. So we all know that digestion of carbohydrate begins from the mouth. So we also have the teeth. Now, teeth helps us to break down the food into chunks that we are able to swallow. So we have the mouth. In the mouth, we have the teeth. We have the saliva. The saliva also helps soften the food, so that the food will go through the esophagus for you to be able to swallow. Or the saliva helps swallowing to be very easy. So in the mouth, we have the salivary glands, or the salivary amylase that's produced by the salivary glands. And we also have the teeth, which is also able to help in the digestion. Then from there, we look at the esophagus. That's the channel through which the food that you chew move through from the mouth into the stomach. So from the esophagus, the food moves into the stomach through the esophagus, the form called the peristaltic movement, or that peristalsis. So it moves in the rhythmic form, that the food, the volume that you swallow, moves in that rhythmic form straight into the stomach. And there's another organ here which you don't have to forget. There's another one here like this. Then we have the main pancreas also. So I need to add them. Now, so from the esophagus, the food moves into the stomach. Now we know that the stomach contains the HCl, the hydrochloric acid, which helps also to digest food. So any food that also enters into the stomach, the hydrochloric acid is able to work on it and then help the food to digest. And then from there, from the stomach, after the hydrochloric acid have worked on it, the food then moves into the small intestine. Now in the small intestine, that is where most of the food nutrients is being absorbed. So 90% of food nutrients is absorbed in the small intestine. And as the food moves from the small intestine, it now goes to the large intestine. Now the large intestine is responsible for absorbing water and minerals. So most of the water and the minerals is absorbed in the large intestine, which is the next phase of the digestion when it moves from the small intestine. So from the small intestine, the food rises up, then it moves into the large intestine. Then from the large intestine, we have here what you call the rectum. Now the rectum stores the undigested food. So as the food goes through all the processes from the mouth, esophagus, the stomach, through the small intestine, the large intestine, the undigested food now comes and is stored in the rectum. The undigested food is stored in the rectum for some time, and then it is later released from the anus as undigested food. So the undigested food will later be released from the body. Now, also here we have another organ here which is called the liver. The liver. So the liver is also another important organ in the digestive system. Then below the liver, we have this one which we call the gallbladder. Now, the liver produces a very important that we call the bile. The liver produces the bile, which also helps to break down fat. Now, this bile that is produced by the liver is stored in what we call the gallbladder. So when the liver produces the bile, here, the bile then goes into the gallbladder to be stored. So the main function of the gallbladder is to store the bile that has been produced by the liver. So you should know the liver produces the bile by the gallbladder that stores the bile. Then also here we have the pancreas, which produces pancreatic juice, which also helps to break down most of the food nutrients, most of the proteins and the lipids are broken down by the help of the pancreatic juice, which is produced by the pancreas. So this is a simple illustration of how the digestive system moves, how food moves from the mouth through the esophagus to the stomach. We have the liver and then the gallbladder. They're also performing their function as producing the bile and then storing it. We also have the small intestine, which also absorbs most of the nutrients from the food that has been taken. Then back to the large intestine, which absorbs water and minerals from the undigested food. Then the undigested food is stored in the rectum and later released through the anus as undigested food. So this is the process that the food goes through. And then when we take the main food substance, the carbohydrates, the form in which the body absorbs, you have the protein, and then we also have fat and oil. So for carbohydrates, broken down in the form that the body can absorb, which is the form of glucose, that's the end product of carbohydrates, which is glucose. The end product of protein, we go to the what? Amino acid. Then that of fat and oil, the end product which the body absorbs is the what? The fatty acid and glycerol. That's the end product of these three food nutrients which the body will later absorb and use it for its function. Thank you very much for today's section. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.